I think there's an Africa which in Europe we do not see. It's a different Africa. It's an Africa where the economy is booming, the economic output has tripled within the last 15 years, and there is a digital Africa where the digital transformation is applied much more closely to human needs.
Welcome to the Strategy Show. I'm your host, Severino. We are here today with Hans Stoisser. He's an entrepreneur setting up a platform to connect European and African entrepreneurs. The platform is called Next Africa. Hello, Hans.
Hello, Simon. Thank you for inviting me.
It's great to have you here. What are you currently creating?
Well, as you already said, I'm creating a space, a platform where European institutions, organizations, companies, and African companies can collaborate.
What lights you up about it?
I think there's an Africa which in Europe we do not see. It's a different Africa. It's an Africa where the economy is booming, the economic output has tripled within the last 15 years, firstly. Secondly, it's an urban Africa where the emerging middle class is doubling or tripling within the next 12 to 15 years. And thirdly, and maybe most interesting, you could call it, there is a digital Africa where the digital transformation is applied much more closely to human needs. For example, mobile money. You might have heard of mobile money, this very easy way how you can transfer money from one mobile phone to the other one. And it's this type of innovations where I think we in Europe could learn a lot of.
Why do you see in Africa that the other people do not see?
Very good question. I was thinking about that for many years because I'm dealing sometimes more, sometimes less, but for more than 30 years with African countries. And I always had this problem when I got back from an African country and I wanted to tell somebody about some very normal things, what have happened on my traveling. As soon as I mentioned the word Africa, people couldn't follow me anymore because they were thinking of wars, hunger, poverty, and so on, which in fact was not the case that I wanted to talk about. So it's a question of how public opinion is working, and there is some self-enforcing forces on work, and that's why I think we do not see in Europe this other Africa, which of course exists.
It seems to be a pattern that entrepreneurs, they start by seeing things that are here that others do not see. How was your start in seeing something different, and how did you cope with it?
Well, in this case, I had, for whatever reason, the opportunity in the early 80s to travel to African countries for the first time. By that time, we had a different time. There were not so many Europeans already there. And I could experience firsthand what's going on. And there was then, of course, this difference. People here had this idea of an ever poorer country, and people are every time worse off, which already by that time was not the case. So I saw this difference. I had the opportunity, so to say, I was privileged in a way to see this difference. And since then I'm trying to get something done on that.
I think it was Peter Drucker who said innovation is looking out of the window and seeing things that the other do not recognize yet.
Yeah, Peter Drucker, our hero. Yes, he's seeing that. And most probably he was also he had also inspired this only much later than upcoming blue ocean theory. Yeah, that there are things out which entrepreneurs are inventing, innovating, and bringing to the people.
When we were at the last Peter Drucker forum in Vienna, I saw this wonderful card that his wife wrote for him. Did you see this card? Which said, "Thank you very much for inviting Professor Drucker to this and that event and to speak at your conference." He will unfortunately not be able to talk about productivity because he will be doing something in that time, which is in the first place the reason why you ask him. Did you see this card?
No, no.
His wife said that he was very bad at saying no, and he was taking too much invitations. So he had many opportunities and he was losing focus. How do you keep your focus on your priorities?
In fact, this is also one of my weaknesses. I always had this, yeah, and not being able to say no, as you mentioned it. Yeah, it's difficult, and nowadays I think it has become even more difficult to focus because you have so many things you could look at. Your attention is always around. How do I try to get focused? I think this comes with age, probably. You see that you do not have that much time anymore, and that's why you are focusing automatically. Yes, I do have some goals, and I try to follow these goals, and this is my main instrument, so to say, to keep focused.
Do you write them down? Do you visualize them? How do you do it?
I'm changing my personal working method constantly, actually. In the moment I have a phase where I do write it weekly down. On a weekly basis I write my goals down, and at the end of the week I'm looking on what I have really achieved. And this is actually quite a good way how you can learn to focus.
And the very important part seems to be the weekly review. Do you take always the same time to do this weekly evaluation review? Do you have a special place to do that?
In this case, I do not have the same place and time, no, which could be quite a good routine, like do it every Sunday night or Sunday evening or Friday afternoon or whatever. No, in this case I do not do that in that way.
Because many listeners tell us that the breaking point of their system is when they fall off the wagon of doing the weekly review. And some other people, they answer it in the forum that they use like a specific tea that they like. They make their tea and they go to their desk, and that helps. And others say they use the scented candles because they like the smell, and then they know, oh, this smell, it's time for the review.
In my case, I mean, it's a very personal thing, yeah, how you do it, and there's no one thing fits for all. But in my case, for the weekly review, I do not need that, I think. Contrary to when I do some writings, yeah, I need a certain environment, a certain coffee or tea, or to get things down. Yes.
And do you have different times when you write, or is it similar times?
Yes, very much. It depends. And in my case, it depends very much. I'm able to write well in the morning, I have to say, before lunch. After lunch, it's impossible for me to do some writing, and then later afternoon at night, I think I'm quite well in doing some writing.